Hello everyone, this is Mirzai from Cal Poly Pomona, and in this lesson we're going to continue our discussion on functions in R. Previously we created a very simple function called mySum that took two input and summed them up and returned the result. Remember, for any function you define a name and you'll have the word function, open close parentheses for input, open close curly brackets for the process, and return open close parentheses for the output to be dumped outside your function. Now this time I want to have a logical test within the function. So this time I want to define a function that takes somebody's last name and identify whether that person is a professor or a student. So in this case, suppose that the professor is me, so my last name is Mirzai. So the function is going to check whether a given input, which is a last name, is my last name or not. If it's my last name, then it's going to spit out that you are a professor. Otherwise, it's going to identify that the last name is a student. So make sure that you put some comments on the top. So here is the overall function, student-professor identification function. Input is a last name, which is either the professor or student's last name. Output is a text that identifies the last name as a student or the professor. So how do I create this function? So we say the input is the last name. Suppose that the last name, we call it A. You can call it anything. So let's put an X this time. X is the last name. Now I have to compare it with the professor's last name. Suppose that the professor in this case is me and my last name is Mirzai. So we want to know if X, which is the last name, is equal to my last name or not. Now if it's true, then it goes inside this curly bracket. Otherwise, it will jump right after this curly bracket. So execution, if this condition is true, if the last name is equal to Mirzai, then it will go inside the curly bracket for execution, otherwise outside. That's how the if function works. So if it's true, then what happens? You want to return text message. A text message where you are a professor. The printing function in R is happening using paste function. You can say you are a professor. So what happens is, if somebody puts a last name here, which is Mirzai, you get a message that you are a professor. However, if this condition is not true, let's say I put any other last name, because this is not true, it will jump right after the curly bracket and execute right here. Which in this case, in the return function, you want to paste this message. You are a student. So if this is true, it will go here. Otherwise, it jumps and execute the next line, which is going to be you are a student. And you're going to finish the whole function with that. So let's go ahead and execute this function. Before I do that, I'm going to change the name here. The function name, I'm going to put it ident function, which identify whether you're a professor or student. I'm going to go ahead and execute the whole thing. There is no error here. I'm going to use this function next, ident, and put a last name. First I start with my last name. It says you are a professor. I'm going to change it this time. Let's go ahead and change Mirzai to some of their last name, Jackson. And if I execute it, it says you're a student. So we had only one condition, either this is true and it goes and execute this part, or it's false and then goes out and execute this line. So that way you have the ident function created. Now to be able to use this in future, I have to save this function with the same name as we identify here. So I'm going to go ahead, while I'm clicking here, go ahead and save this file in my documents as ident. And then close this one. Alright, I also closed my R file and I opened it again. I'm going to go ahead and source the R code. Remember, the easiest way is to use the source option under File tab. I double click and source the function. However, the better way of doing it is always using the source in your script. So when I next time want to use the source, I don't need to go through files and source. I can just execute this line. And now I have access to ident function. Now if I type in ident Lara, for example, execute it, it says you are a student. All right, with that, our second lesson in functions in R has concluded. Please refer to your Blackboard for your assignments. Thank you.